Everyone, welcome in. Welcome in, everybody. Super happy to have you all here. We are going to be doing a few different, well, not a few different. I wanted to talk a little bit about if you're just getting into how to use iron-on vinyl to make a design. We're going to work on the talk to you a little bit about the different materials that are available for you to use and the systems that are available for you to use. I don't know which one to pick, and then we'll go ahead and cut a design, and I'll show you how to iron it on using the auto press, and we'll talk about some of the different heat systems you can use to do your iron-on designs. So why don't we go ahead and break down first? Why don't we talk about a little bit about digital cutters? So a digital cutter, Michaels carries three different manufacturers of digital cutters. So you have your Cricut machines, you have Silhouette machines, and you have the Siser machines. They all work a little bit different. Even within each company, the different machines work a little bit differently. So just kind of getting comfortable and understanding how the machines work is a good first start. So if you're like, I want to get started in it, but you're not really sure which machine is the right machine for you, I would really recommend that you do a bit of research to understand which machine cuts which type of materials. And then that will direct you as to which of your hobbies you want to use your digital cutter on. All of the companies with their digital cutters have their own software. So whether you're using a Silhouette machine, you're going to use the Silhouette software. The software doesn't intermix and speak with each of the different digital cutting machines. However, you can upload your own designs to all of the three different machines. So if you made your own design outside of their software, you could always upload your design to cut. Same goes for if you purchase a design from, say, an Etsy shop, or you use the Michaels digital designs, you could upload any of those designs to the three different softwares and cut them in your digital cutter. Now, each of the different digital cutters will have its own unique mat to put into the machine and feed the material into the machine. Based on the material you're using, it may vary on the type of mat you're using. So I have Cricut standard grip mat here, which is a pretty good broad material mat. It does a lot of your basic materials that you want to cut. The only big difference is for like the Cricut standard grip mat, I put paper on their light grip mat. So if you're cutting with paper, then you'd want to have a different type of mat. But for your iron-on materials, the standard grip mat in the Cricut machine will work just fine. Now, some of the machines do have the capabilities to cut without a mat, but I always like to know, if you're a beginner, I want you to know how to cut using a mat, because if you're using small pieces of material, then you'll definitely want to put those on a mat. Now, at your Michaels stores, when you go down the aisle with the digital cutters, you'll see the different machines, but then you'll also see a huge variety of different types of materials. The materials we're working with today are heat transfer vinyl, also known as HTV or iron-on vinyl. And what the difference between the heat transfer vinyl and, say, others, removable vinyl or permanent vinyl, the heat transfer vinyl requires some sort of heat to actually heat up the vinyl and adhere it to your shirt. So once you place the vinyl, you will cut the vinyl, and then once you adhere it to your shirt, it's not going to go anywhere. You can't peel it off. It is going to become basically glued to your shirt once it's done through heating up. Now, Michaels offers the Make Market vinyl, which is their brand of vinyl, and you have a lot of different choices to use. I've pulled out a couple of my favorite ones. I have like a whole batch of colors here, but the two of my current favorite types of vinyl are the puffed vinyl and a flocked vinyl. So the puffed vinyl, when you heat it up, it actually puffs up. If you ever used puffy paints back in the day, it has that same effect. So it really gives you like this three-dimensional puffy look to it. The flocked vinyl has like a flocked texture to it. So it's kind of like fuzzy. I always think about those I'm going to date myself, but those 1970s posters that they were black and then you colored in the designs, that's what flocking is. So it has the texture already. You don't need to heat anything up to get that texture. And then they also Michaels also has in the Make Market their just plain iron-on vinyl, and that comes in a bunch of different colors and finishes, even some patterns. Now, what you can use any of the different types of vinyl, the iron-on materials, you can use those in any of the different machines. So you could use Siser vinyl, you could use the Make Market vinyl, you could use the Cricut vinyl in any of the different machines. What the difference is the cut settings. So every machine that you're working with has different cut settings. Typically, though, I have found that across the different machines, if you're using iron-on vinyl, no matter the manufacturer, it typically cuts the same. So sometimes if I'm using a new type of vinyl to me in a different machine, I'll do a little circle test cut to see, okay, do I have the right settings in my machine? And then I'll cut it out. Now, one of the important parts to know about how to set up your vinyls, I don't think I opened this one yet. When you start to work with your iron-on material, something that's a little bit different and takes a little bit of remembering to get it right, your vinyl material all has a shiny side and a dull side. Now, the shiny side is actually not where the material is. It is a carrier for your iron-on material. So you have a shiny side, and that's like a clear piece of plastic that is adhered to the actual vinyl. The vinyl is the dull side. So this shiny yellow side is the carrier sheet, and then the back is the material. And you could peel it away to test that. But the shiny side, that carrier sheet, will hold your design together. So like if you're doing a design like my shirt today, you would cut this design out and then we'll weed out the parts of the design that you don't want to transfer to your shirt. But all these individual letters need to stay together in the position that you cut them out with. So that's where that clear, shiny carrier sheet comes in hand. You'll go on the back side and weed out the pieces. But this is where it creates where you have to remember. First of all, you have to remember you want to mirror your design in your software before sending it to your cutter. And a lot of the softwares will prompt you, hey, you're using an iron-on material. Did you remember to mirror your design? So you definitely want to remember to always mirror your design, and then remember to place your material with the shiny side down, because you're actually going to cut the material side. It wouldn't do you any good to cut on the carrier sheet, because you just need to do a cut on the back side. And the type of cut you're going to cut is called a kiss cut. So that means it's going to cut through the iron-on material and not cut through the shiny carrier sheet. So it's a kiss cut. It kisses your vinyl and just gives it a very light cut so that you can weed it out. So those are some really important key parts to remember when you're using iron-on materials. And all of the materials have different required heat settings based on how you're going to apply your material. So if you don't have some sort of like flat face heat press, this is the Mac Daddy. This is the big one. And I pulled this one out because it just makes it easy. And if you're making a whole bunch of family shirts, you may want to invest in the auto press, but you can even just use your home iron. So the important thing there is you want to remember highest setting and no steam. The benefit to using one of the easy presses or the flatbed presses is that the heat is transferred evenly across the entire plate of the heat press. So when you press this down, or any of the smaller ones, when you're pressing that down, the heat goes consistently around and through this whole faceplate. With your home iron, your heat is more on the edge or maybe more centralized in the center. And you have to press down, pick up, press down, pick up, which, trust me, I did tons of shirts when I was getting started with my home iron. and then have over time evolved and upgraded to a variety of different presses. So those are the different materials we're going to use. We'll have your digital cutter, you'll have your material, and then your heat source. And you can even cut these out. If you don't have a digital cutter, you can cut out a design by hand. So you can print off a design that you like online, print it on printer paper, just right out of your printer, and then use scissors and cut your design from the different material. So if you don't have a digital cutter, that is always an option. But I'm going to share my screen. And Chanel, I'm having a hard time seeing any Q&As. So if anything comes over, if you wouldn't mind, I don't mind you popping in and asking me those questions. I don't want to miss any questions.
Sure, I can do that for you.
Thank you. So yeah, if you guys have any questions as we're going through, feel free to drop those in the Q&A, and I'd be happy to answer those questions as we're working along. Now, like I said, no matter which machine you're using, whether it's a Silhouette, a Siser, or a Cricut, they all have their software that you can work with. And if you can do different keyword searches, and each one of them has their own digital library of designs that you can select from and cut out. Now, you can usually purchase those designs one by one, so you don't have to have the membership to use the software is all, there's no fee for any of the machines associated with using their software. But if you wanted to use, say, this yellow Marion Bright design and you didn't have a Cricut access, it would just charge you whatever this fee was at the bottom of the image. And all of the different softwares work the same way. So you would just charge it that way. So that's how that works. And then we're going to, now I've already picked a design out and created the design. So I'm actually going to go to my library of designs where I've already done the design and created it, rather than making you guys scroll through the whole library of designs. So this is the design I chose, the Merry and Bright. And it is a pre-done design, like the design is already done, so I don't have to recreate anything, and it's all right there. And I will be cutting on a mat for this one. So we're just going to go ahead and say continue. So it brings, oops, sorry guys, let me go back a step. I want to customize this design. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is take our shirt, and let me stop sharing here. Sorry, I forgot this one step here. The first thing we're going to do is you'll take your shirt and you'll decide how big you want your design to be. So this is a large men's shirt, and I usually say 9 to 11 inches wide is the biggest the design you want to be. But you can just take your shirt and take a ruler and measure across to see how big you actually want your design to be. I can even take my mat. If you don't have your ruler, your tape measure handy, you have a guide on your shirt here, on your mat, that is 12 inches. So if I were to take
Hey, Kesley.
yes.
I for some reason you cut out a little bit, but you're back again, so never mind.
Oh no. Okay. So I have the Marion Bright, and I just want to change this design to be 9 inches. So I can go up to the width section here and change that to 9 inches. And that will adjust both the horizontal and vertical shape. And then this is a little design I had on the sleeve of my sweatshirt, and I'll show you guys that. But if I wanted to put that on the sleeve of my t-shirt, I could make that a little bit smaller or larger if you wanted to. Now, once it's ready to go, I'm just going to send that over and say make. Now, once I click it over there, it will place it on your mat and you'll get to see how it goes on your mat. For Cricut, this is where you would mirror your image. So I want you to see, like if I cut this out as it was, it would actually cut in the back side of the material. And then it would, when I place it on my shirt, it would be reversed. So before I even cut it, I want to select that mirror and it switches the design around. Then I go ahead and say continue. And it's going, oops, I think make sure I'm turned on there. So it'll look for your machine. And a lot of the machines now you can connect with Bluetooth or hardwire it into the machine. So this one should be wired in. So it's got my Maker 3 is the machine I'm going to use with the USB. Make sure that's connected in. And then you'll select your material. Now I have the flocked material and the puffed material. And it's on the packaging. It doesn't necessarily say what your cut settings are. So this is where you could do a test on the cut settings. The vinyl felt very much to me like the same weight as my Cricut iron-on vinyl. So I actually used that setting, was just to use the everyday iron-on vinyl setting. And let me just pull this out here. Got like a little bit of tape on there. Shouldn't be this hard to open, right? There we go. So when I took it out of the packaging, it felt very much like the regular iron-on material. So I didn't change the settings. I just used the everyday iron-on material, which is right here. So once you select that, and then it will tell you to load your material into the mat. So I can stop that one. Now, let me just go ahead and Chanel, do you want to do the overhead? And I can I'll be in reverse. Maybe I'll switch this around. Why don't I switch my machine around here? So we'll see it go in and out. That might be easier for you guys. Okay, so here's the machine. I'll just slide this over for you. Like that. All right, so I've got our machine right here. When you take your mat and put your material down, we know that the design is going to go over across the top. So I'll take off my clear plastic sheet. Again, you've got your shiny side and you have your dull side. It's a little bit harder to see because they're both red. The yellow was definitely had that white side on it, but since they're both red, it may be a little bit harder to see, but you could definitely tell this one is the shiny side and this is the dull side. So I'm going to go ahead and set my material on my mat. Now, you do not have to have the entire roll of material set onto your mat. So we can cut this down a bit and make it a little bit easier to fit onto your mat and less to take off. So I'll just cut this down about 6 inches. And normally you'd look back at your mat and say, how long do I need it to be? Pretty sure I don't need it to be any longer than 6 inches, but let's just double check. Yeah, so 6 inches, I'm safe. I will have a little bit of extra left over, which is fine by me. Rather have a little extra than not enough. Okay, so we'll just pop this one over here and I will start with this upper left corner and you apply that down. Now what you're looking for is a very smooth application of your material. So you can use a brayer or your wedge to make sure that that is down nice and smooth and there's no real bubbles in the middle. You kind of want to avoid bubbles because you don't want your blade to have a spot where it kind of hiccups or anything. So we're just going to put that right here. And then we'll just line that down. You'll load it into your machine and then it will start cutting. I forget, you have to hit another button to get it to start cutting. And I'm just going to make sure, I think my mat doesn't have that much stick in it, which happens sometimes. Definitely time for me to replace my mat here or clean it. You can always clean your mats. If like this one kind of seems not to be super sticky. So with Cricut, they recommend using Dawn dish soap and just a soft bristled brush and just giving it a good wash. And then you'll just let it out to dry and that will help renew the stick, which I think this mat is telling me it's time to do that. So that's good. That's like if you're a beginner, you just know when your mat like isn't holding your materials down as well as you expect it to, which this definitely is not. It's just time to clean your mat and give it a fresh start. So that's what I need to do with this one. And you would normally not need to hold it down. You could, it should stick and hold down very nicely for you. In fact, I would not recommend doing this at home. At home. And the reason being is like you don't want to pull on the mat and because it has a natural draw to it. So if you are holding down on it, it may inhibit your the cut. But if it gets curled up in there, it will not it won't it'll get stuck in the machine, which you can unstick it, no problem. But you just want to, I'm trying to avoid that happening. So. All right. So once it's done cutting, that's, you can, with your Cricut machine, you can test it and make sure that it did the cutting that you're expecting for it to cut by taking a piece of it and just weeding it while it's still on the mat. So if it didn't cut on your Cricut machine as you were expecting it to, you can hit the play button a second time and it will pull in the, it'll pull this, your mat and your material back in and it will recut it for you. But I just tested it and it was a great cut. So we are safe to continue our project there. Okay.
Hey,
So
Kesley, when you
yeah,
have a moment, can you repeat how to clean the mat, please?
absolutely. So once you've taken your material off your mat, I oftentimes will hit it with a baby wipe if I've cut a lot of if I've cut with a lot of paper or some sort of like fibrous material, felt or something like that. I would hit it with a baby wipe and that would clean it off. If you have it like where mine was just now, it really should have a much better stick to it than it appears to be having. So I would just take it tonight after our workshop. I'll take it over to my kitchen sink and use some Dawn dish detergent. And I would just put a little squirt of your dish detergent on your mat and give it a wash. You can use a really soft bristled brush. So I sometimes will just do it with my hands and that gives me a nice clean there. And then you just have to let it dry for a minute or so. So what I'm doing now is I'm doing the weeding step, and that's removing any part of the design that I don't want to have on my cut. So when I go to apply my design, I want to remove any of the red that isn't actually part of the design. So there's little pieces in between the R's, there's little dots there. So you'll just take your weeding tool and you'll just go, you'll be able to see, it's hard to see it on camera, I know, but I can just find that little hole and I'll use my weeding tool and you kind of dig in and then pull it off. So you just kind of give it like a little scoop in and out. So bright will have 2 in the B. And then we'll have another one in the middle of the R. And if you ever have trouble with the weeding, I look back at my design if it's on my screen to kind of get an idea of where that design is. or I hold it up to a light box or my window. If it's during the daytime, you can just hold it right up to your window and it will, you'll see where those little cuts are and you can just weed those pieces off. I love that snowflake on there. So there's our design right there. Now, the next thing I need to do is I want to make sure that I take that little piece off because that's going to go on the sleeve of my design. So we'll just use the scissors or my paper trimmer and you can just trim that piece off. So we'll just give that a little trim here and remove that from my design. So you can cut all of your shapes all at once. On like kind of do what's called a gang cut and you cut a bunch of pieces at one time. So we're just going to go slice that down a little bit. I had a pair of scissors right here. I know I did. Oh, there they are. I was like, I knew I had them. I opened the box with them. So we'll just go like that. So we'll save this piece and put this on the sleeve of our design. We'll put that over there. And then you have your Merry and Bright. Now, you can, if you wanted to, you could use your ruler and you could fold it, use your ruler to find out exactly where the center is. My little cheat, I'll fold the design in half and find out where the design touches. So I can either line it up with the Merry or line it up with the Bright end, which I'll line it up with the Bright end. So I just put a little crease on each side here. And I can see right where the center of my design is going to be. Now, on your shirt, when you get started with your shirt, the first thing you want to do is you do want to put this in your press for about 5 or 10 seconds. And what that does is it removes any heat or moisture on your shirt. And Chanel, I'm thinking maybe it would be better, since the way I've got this position, just to do a different press. So let me pull that out. So we'll use the, we'll just use the Cricut Easy Press here. And I'll just plug that in. Might be easier just to keep it at this angle. So for this is Bluetooth capable. And you can use your phone app, an app on your phone, to send the heat settings to your Easy Press to make sure that you get the right heat settings. With this material from Make Market, it actually has the recommended heat settings and instructions on the back of it. So I really appreciate that, since this was kind of a newer material for me to use. So once you've got your design cut, you're going to heat this up to 280 to 290 degrees, and you'll press for 10 seconds. And then you'll remove the design while hot, and we'll replace the parchment paper and press with medium pressure for an additional 5 seconds. So that extra press will give it a little bit of extra hold, if you will. So I found that with this puff paint, I like to go to the higher settings. So I'm just going to change to the 290 degree setting. But I'll change my seconds down to that 10-second time. So my timing will be less. Gonna push that right down there. Okay, so I've got that down. Now, while that's heating up, I just need to grab my parchment, my cover thing, and my press pad. I wasn't planning on doing it right here. So you can use, to cover your design, you can use parchment paper, or you can use a Teflon sheet like this, and this will cover up the design as well. But the carrier sheet works as a barrier to your design, so you don't have to worry about damaging your material if you're using the carrier sheet. Now, to find the center of my shirt, what I like to do is first I'll do that 10-second press, 5-second press to get any extra moisture out of my shirt. So we'll just put that down. Even if I'm not at the full hot temperature, I'll just put that down for about 5 seconds or so. And then we'll be able to pull it up. Now, once I've got that first press done, I know I've pretty much got the moisture out of my shirt. Then I'll take my shirt and fold it in half, matching up my shoulder pieces and matching my sleeves and my side seam. And you may have to iron it as you go along if it's super wrinkly. You can press it as you go along. But basically, what I'm going to do here, once I have everything lined up, is I will use my press to press a center seam on my shirt. And the reason I do that is so it makes it easier for me to place.
Hey, Kesley, your voice went out again. I don't know.
I'm just going to put that there, give it a nice little 5-second press or so. And then once I have that down, I will open my shirt up and you'll see you'll have a nice center fold line there that I can follow and press with that. The other tip to putting your design down is how far from the neckline you place that design. So since this is a man's large shirt, I'm going to do 4 fingers down is about where I want the top of my design to go. If I'm doing a shirt for myself, I usually do about 2 to 3 fingers, depending on the design. So once I've got my little marks on my design here. I can even fold it again, double check my marks, and I'll give myself about 4 fingers down. So it's going to be right about there. And I'll line up my half marks from my carrier sheet with that folded line on my shirt. And then if you wanted to, you could grab a ruler and measure from points to points and make sure you've got it in the center there. And you can also measure up here. This design I find is a little bit hard to measure because it kind of curves in and out. So you almost have to give it an imaginary straight line here and straight line here. This side's a little bit easier because from your Y to your T, you could draw like an imaginary straight line or use something to give yourself a straight line. And then if you didn't have your ruler handy, you could always just use a tool to measure that halfway mark and make sure that you're at the equal distance between point A and point B. And remember, once it's on the body, it is a little bit, it's a little bit different. It doesn't, once it's on your body, that little bit, if it's a quarter of an inch off or so, it's not gonna, no one's gonna notice it. Okay, so once you have it positioned where you want, now your carrier sheet does have a little stick to it. So if you did this on a table and then you moved it to an overhead, like a bigger press, you won't, your shirt won't come, the design won't come off. Like it's going to stay on there for you because it does have a little bit of adhesive on the back of that carrier sheet. It's got like a little bit of stick there. So it's going to stay in place for you. Okay, so once we've got it on, I've got my easy press here heated up to 290 degrees for 10 seconds. And I'm just going to go for 10 seconds and give it a press. Now, for a couple of times, as I started with this material, I noticed that it didn't quite puff up like I had expected it to. So I did another press on it, but I can see that it's already heating up and pressing up on the shirt. So I'm going to remove my carrier sheet when it's hot, as instructed, and I can see already it's puffing up. It's so fun to watch. And then we're going to do that last step of replacing the parchment paper or your Teflon sheet. Now, parchment paper probably would be the better move, just in case any of it came, like any of the design came off. Your parchment paper you could, throw away. And then we'll do this for 5 seconds. And there we go. And that just sets it in. And I can see it's puffy. I don't know if I can get it close enough to the camera. See if I can focus it. Can I focus it differently or zoom in? I don't think I can change my camera angle, but can you see that? It's got like a raised, I don't, it's really cool. And then on the sleeve, if I wanted to, if I'm ready to add my design on my sleeve, I want to do that same system. So I'm going to take my sleeve and I'll have it folded down the line here. And I'm going to do that pre-press. And when I'm pre-pressing, I'm going to get a nice crease going. So we'll just pre-press for 5 seconds or so. Pop that up. Now on the sleeve, I do want to make sure I don't get my actual shirt in the sleeve. So we're gonna push that out of the way and we'll put the sleeve right here. Now, if you needed to, if you were worried about getting anything in the way of the sleeve, as far as like getting a nice smooth cut there, you could just put another little pad if you had one inside the sleeve, or you could use like, sometimes I'll use a piece of wood. Like I have this piece of wood. This piece of wood is a stray piece of wood that has been in my craft room, I don't know how long, and it comes in handy for so many different things. So I just can put my sleeve on the wood there and give myself a nice smooth surface to press on. And fortunately, my design has the top and the bottom. So I'll just put that on and give it just enough clearance from that seam. Okay, so we're going to put it on for 10 seconds. And I give it a little firm pressure. Take that off. We'll remove this. See how that just comes right off the carrier sheet and it sticks down onto your shirt. Got that puff on there. And then we'll add the Teflon sheet and do another little 5-second press. That gives a little extra heat, a little extra puff there, and we're good to go. All right. So now, in terms of making these types of shirts for your family, don't forget, like you can think about using different colors of the design or anything like that on here. You can choose different colors for different shirts, so everyone could have a different design here. You could, with like a different design with different colors, you could give everybody a different t-shirt color. In fact, on in the evening, you guys could design your shirts and have everybody cut their shirt as they see fit and really get in there and design their own design overall. Do you want to go back to the front camera, Chanel? And if there are any questions, I can answer those. Gotta get my thing here so I can see. All right. So I did see there was
The only question within the last couple minutes was, can you, oh, not that one. What was the time and temp again for the puff?
okay, so the time and temp for the puff. And like I mentioned, it is on the packaging, which I think is so super helpful. So the time and temp on your puff was 280 to 290 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you're using a home iron, you want that on the very hottest setting. No steam. So make sure your iron has no moisture in it, no steam. Get all that out of there. And then it was 10 seconds for the first press, 5 seconds for the second press. The second press is really just an extra step to heat your design onto your shirt. I have accidentally skipped that second step before and it's been fine. You should get like over 100 washes when you work with iron on vinyl. They should give you like, you should go in and out of the washing machine and the dryer 100 different times. This is washable, so you don't have to hand wash your shirt when you use the puff vinyl. You can just put that right in your washing machine. And let me look at the flocking. Because the flocking it probably has the same settings. So your flocking, you're going to heat 290 to 315 degrees for 30 seconds. So you'll need to.
Your overhead just went out and I don't think we can hear you anymore. Kesley, we can't hear you anymore. Your overhead went out. Your overhead camera turned off. So you're not connected overhead and we can't hear you anymore. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everybody. We'll be right back with you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Coming back.
I don't know if you know this, but your video camera is not on though.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yay! Is there an echo?
No, you're good.
Yay! Awesome. Okay. Sorry, guys.
It
All
was
right.
it
So,
was a couple minutes that we lost you, but I do remember the last thing you were talking about was the flocked vinyl temp and time.
okay. So our flocked vinyl temp and time on the flocked vinyl is 280 to 290 degrees for 10 seconds, and then take the carrier sheet off and another 5 seconds after that. If you don't get enough of a puff, you can hold it on for an extra 5 seconds. I found going to the higher of the recommended setting, the 290-degree setting, I found that that gave me a better puff on my shirt. So I would recommend, if it doesn't work at first, and that's why I kind of brought this over to show you. This is my testing shirt. So I'll test all kinds of different things on my shirt. And this was actually the shirt I did the testing on with the flocked. So the first one, I didn't really get the puff I wanted. And then the second one, I got the puff I wanted. So that worked out great. Now, I did have the flocked Make Market vinyl, which has, I kind of, it's not quite a tennis ball feel, but if you think about like how a tennis ball is fuzzy, that's sort of what the flocked does. It has like a fuzzy feel to it. And you can always, if you take the carrier sheet back on the flocked material, you can actually feel that on there. There's no heat required to get it to flock. It already has the flock texture on there. This you heat at a higher temperature. So this you would do at 315 degrees. So it would go at a much higher temperature than your puff design went at. So you do the flocked material, it says on here, 315 degrees for 30 seconds. So you heat it longer. And really what I was saying was as you work with different materials, I would recommend following the manufacturer's suggestions, because the your Make Market flocked material may have different heat settings than say your Siser, or your, like if you were to use their Make Market has a really fun, I thought I pulled it up here, has a really fun glow in the dark material. So you want to make sure that you're using the Make Market recommended settings for the heating their glow in the dark material. And I know Siser has a glow in the dark. I know Cricut has a glow in the dark. So the different manufacturers have different heat settings, and they may also have different cut settings. I do find the cut settings for the iron-on material to sort of be a little bit more universal. So they all kind of work across the different materials as far as the cut settings go. So if I'm cutting just the same type of vinyl, I'll get the same type of cut settings. But I think my flocked vinyl in the Cricut, I did have to come up with my own settings for that material. So that was a good one. Are there any other, do you guys have any other questions about making a set of family shirts or anything like that? I just think the puff is such a good feel for the holidays, for winter, that it's really fun, and it has a nice texture to it. And I also like having this here because it's kind of fun to like just rub it. If you have anybody who has any anxiety or likes texture on their clothes, then that's kind of a fun texture. You can always feel it. So I kind of like that. I have a niece who really likes that.
We do have a couple questions. Did you only use the puff on that first shirt?
I did. On my shirt here, I only use the puff. And on this shirt with the sleeve, I only use the puff. If you wanted to do a combination of puff and say flock, or puff and plain vinyl, what I recommend is, if you think about it, if you can plan ahead, you want to do the material that requires the highest heat setting first, and then follow that up with the second material. I would not put anything on top of the puff design. I would be concerned that heating it up a second time would flatten it. But if, I would, again, grab your test shirt and test out with a little piece if you wanted to. But if you wanted to combine the flock and the puff, I would do the flock first, since that's at a 315 degree. And then I would do the puff on top of, like beside that. I don't know that I'd put the puff on top of the flock, because you at that may be like too much texture. I don't think it would hurt the flock to put it on top, but I think you could do it next to each other. So like on this one, if you wanted to do the Mary in one type of material, iron-on material, and then the bright in a second type of iron-on material, you could absolutely do that and do one puff and one flock that way. So like if you're using glitter to like, I always do my glitter first and then my vinyl on top of with next to that.
The other question was actually, can you layer the puff and flock? And I think you just answered it. So that's
Yeah.
all good.
Yeah, I would again, I wouldn't, I don't know that I would layer them one on top of the other, but I would layer them next to each other in a design. And I would just do your flocked first and then your puffed afterwards. I that flock, I've used the flock. The flock is great all season or any season. Like it's not just I wouldn't use it just for the winter. And I also wouldn't use the puff just for winter. Like in the summer if you have a t-shirt with like or a tote bag with a big yellow sun on it to use the yellow puff would be super fun to do that. Or if you were doing like let's say you got inspired by all the Barbie this fall and you want to do something pink with Barbie on it. I would definitely do something like that. That would be super fun. If you have a golfer in your family and you want to do a t-shirt for them, that's the puff, but the flocked for a golfer is a great like putting green or something like that. So if you're doing or if you're even if you're doing like pickleball for somebody like to do use the flock for a pickleball shirt would be super fun.
How would you do the design with two colors of glitter?
So to do a design like this with two colors, there's a couple ways you can do it. One is to set the colors in the software, whichever program you're using. So if you're using like if you're using Cricut, I would probably duplicate the design and make one red and one green, and then cut out the part of the design that you didn't want to have in the software so that when you cut it, you're just cutting the Mary in one color, the Anne Bright in another color. If you're making a whole bunch of these shirts for a lot of people, you may just cut it the whole design, one out of white and one out of blue, and then just use your scissors and where there's this, you have the space in between the Mary and Bright, just fussy cut that. Use your scissors and zoop, cut that right in the center, and then you could put green down and red down next. And then I would, if I'm using the same material in different colors, so if I were using two different colors of puff, but they were both puff materials, I would press them at the same time. So I would line my design back up and having one color on the top and one color on the bottom. Or maybe you want to just do each color kind of different. I've seen that. It's really cute. You could do like red, green, pink, blue, and white and have four different colors in your design. But if you're using the same materials, I would press them at the same time if you can. That way you're not pressing over and over on different materials. Good questions.
Can you layer the glitter HTV?
Yes, you can layer glitter iron-on material and HTV. I prefer instead of putting vinyl, another type of vinyl on top of the glitter, I prefer either cutting it out so that if you're going to do like a circle with a star in the center and you want the circle to be glitter and the star to be puff, I would slice that design. I'd slice the star out of the circle. So your circle would have the whole of where the star goes. So you're not putting one type of material on top of another type of material. You can definitely layer, like with your Cricut iron-on materials, you can layer up to four different layers of vinyl on top of each other. I have found like when I go that many, it just changes the texture and it leaves more room to make an error. So I prefer to instead of stack my vinyl on top of each other, I prefer to try and have my design where I basically cut out a hole to pop in my vinyl on that hole, like in those little spots. So it's not stacking on top of each other, but more like a puzzle and matching it up back together. But you can.
What size was the snowflake that you had on the sleeve?
the snowflake on the sleeve, I resized this to, let's see. Now remember, this is on a large t-shirt, so I left it a little bit big. So if you're doing like a kid's shirt or something like that, you want to take that into account. But my snowflake ended up being about 2.5 inches on this design. On my shirt, it's a little bit bigger. Like on how do I show that? Like on my shirt, it's a little bit bigger on my sweatshirt than it was on the sleeve. If you go into design space, if you use Cricut, I do have this project shared in design space. So if you go into design space and do a search for my name, Kesley Anderson, my projects will show up and you can just make it right from there. So the snowflake will be there, the Marion Bright will be there, and you can just make it right from there. And other projects I've made are in there. So that's always an easy way to find a design if you like it.
And you answered the last question just now, so you are good.
Oh, awesome. 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 Yeah, I love, and I'm so sad. I think this is my last class of the year, but we will be back in January with more tech classes. My name's Kesley. I do a lot of the tech classes for Cricut. So we'll be learning about all the different cutting machines from Siser, like the Juliet. We'll work with Silhouette. We'll work with Cricut. And I teach classes with the Glowforge, sewing classes. So we have a lot of fun classes planned for the new year. If you are getting a new machine as a gift, definitely keep your eye out for our classes and our workshops to help you, to help guide you along in your crafting journey. So if there's no more questions, I think we covered everything.
Yep, there's no more questions.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Chanel, thank you so much for handling all my technical difficulties today.
No problem.
Have a great week, everybody.